What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode on Praz's Pitch. We're here a couple days after the end of the World Cup, and I've still definitely got some thoughts on that game. Whether or not I want to make another video, I'm not quite sure. But I think I want to look after the World Cup on today, seeing how the events of the World Cup have really impacted what the Ballon d'Or rankings are going to be for this upcoming award ceremony. As we know, the Ballon d'Or journalists like to weigh extremely heavily on these big summer tournaments like the World Cup, Euros, and Copa America, and so I'm certainly curious to see uh, how I think these rankings have changed and how, as we're going to look through, uh, how these rankings are going to be ordered after the World Cup. All right, so we are going to be looking today at the 365 scores top 15 candidates for the Ballon d'Or rankings after the World Cup. And to get right into it, uh, first player I have is Bruno Fernandes. I like this a lot. I think in another year he would almost certainly be a top 10 player in the Ballon d'Or, breaking the assist record for in the Premier League of all time. Is incredibly impressive to carry this Man United squad that we saw struggle so heavily last year to a Champions League spot in the Premier League is just something that cannot be understated. Um, Now, I think we're going to see this with pretty much the entire Portuguese squad ghosted in this World Cup, and because of that, it's going to be impossible to rank him any higher than this. And I understand that, so I'm going to have to agree with where this is placed. I do feel a little bad for him keeping him this low after such a historic year, Premier League Player of the Season. Um, but with how he performed at the World Cup, with how much weight that the tournament is going to have, he's just going to have to stay there. Um, and so, and no major trophies won, unfortunately. Uh, Next, we have Ashraf Hakimi, uh, 14th. I don't know. A part of me wants to put him a bit higher than that because I do think he is one of the most pivotal players in this PSG side. Now, again, I do understand that with these PSG players, they maybe get a little bit hindered by the fact that the way that Luis Enrique has their system set up, he actually doesn't play a lot of the PSG League on games. Um, and that's not necessarily his fault. I still think he started a good number. I think a little over half of them. But with the way that he played in the Champions League, um, and with the fact that he is Morocco's best player, and they did lose to France in the quarterfinals, and I mean, but leading up to that, I mean, Morocco had a generally pretty impressive tournament run to beat the Netherlands in the way that they did. Um, just showed really the dominance of this side. Showed why they are really certainly the best African team. Um, Now I think also Morocco technically won the Afcon this year. We'll see if they actually have it in the trophies. They do. Um, Morocco technically won the Afcon this year. I mean, I personally I think that Senegal does deserve that, but I don't really know. I haven't looked into it too much, so I'm gonna stay a little bit out of that. I think AFCON, unfortunately, just isn't going to be weighted on as heavily as a lot of these other trophies. I think the Champions League is going to be probably the bigger consideration for the people who are voting for him. Um, and so, honestly, I think I would probably put him a little bit higher, maybe just outside of that top 10. I think 14th is maybe doing him a little bit rough. And Declan Rice, 13th. Wow. I think he's got to be higher than this. Now, I love a good Arsenal hate watch, but at the end of the day, they were the either the first or second best team in the world, probably second. Really, PSG is the best team in the world, but he was the best player on the second best team in the world. To win the Premier League is just by absolutely no means an easy task, and to accomplish this, at this point in his career, uh, he is the best player. He had, and you don't really look at the stats for a defensive midfielder. Um, he wasn't a super pivotal player for England at the World Cup. We definitely saw Jude Bellingham uh, really dominate that, midfield, whole role. He kind of was just the character that's going to be the face of England. And even Elliot Anderson arguably had a better tournament than him. But I don't think Declan Rice played poorly by any means in the World Cup. I think he is always going to be a solid player, even on his worst days. And just with the way that he helped Arsenal get to the Champions League final, as well as win the Premier League, I'd probably have him in that 8 to 9 position, higher up than he is right here. Although I guess we'll have to see who else they have. Luis Diaz, this is interesting because I think he definitely gets overshadowed a lot by the individual brilliant personnel of Michael Elise and Harry Kane. Um, and when you look at the actual stats, let's see, he had 27 goals and 24 assists, which is just remarkably impressive for this day and age. Those are numbers that it's near impossible for anyone not named Messi or Ronaldo to put up and not be ranked this high. Um, Not that Messi and Ronaldo wouldn't be ranked this high, but they were just always putting up these numbers over the past decade or two. Um, so for anyone not named Messi or Ronaldo to put up these numbers, it's incredibly impressive. Um, and I do want to give credit to the fact that what he really did for Bayern Munich. I think elevated them to the level of being um, one of the best teams in the world. I would say probably third best team in the world this year, maybe second, honestly. That semifinal PSG Bayern um, was just, those were some astounding games. 5-4, just beautiful football. Um, but I think having him add that extra dimension of threat for on this Bayern Munich attack was really important. With that being said, um, just winning the Bundesliga and getting these stats on a World Cup year where he really didn't do too much for Colombia, it's going to be tough. I would say maybe have him in this position. Maybe I'd put him a little bit higher, near that like 14, 15 range. Um, but let's look at who we have next. It is Mikel Oyarzabal. This one, I gotta be honest, I don't love it. Um, it's just the World Cup bias that we're seeing here. Um, he did win the World Cup, and he was a relatively important player on the Spanish team. But the thing is, I think the Spanish team was just so well rounded that there was no one player that was really important. He did put away the goals, but I think it was more that he was just in the position to do so. Um, and not to really discredit 5 goals in a World Cup is very impressive. I think he tied Spain's all-time record. But when you look outside of this World Cup, his he didn't really score too many goals. I want to say they won the Copa del Rey, which might be also why he's this high. He did win that trophy. Let's check. Yeah, he did. Um, so I don't know. I just don't think that he really was super influential. I think Spain's midfield and defense was really what helped them win the World Cup. Um, and so I wouldn't necessarily have him this high. I'd probably be leaning more in those high teens, like maybe 17, 18, 19 area. Um, but next we have Vitinha, which that's hard because he ghosted for Portugal, man. And it is so hard when we can see this whole team wants to push, wants to get Ronaldo the ball and do all of this, and also with the way that Vitinha plays at PSG, it's going to be very very different, a much more fluid system where the control of the ball that they have. It's not necessarily his role in that PSG team to push forward and create a large number of chances, which I think was why we saw him play for Portugal. He wasn't really doing that. He was more so just possessing the ball, helping them have more control of the game, which, when you're on PSG, it's going to be super beneficial when you have those extra players, when you have, the fullbacks who are able to carry forward, when you have other midfielders who are going to be able to carry forward. You kind of want someone who's able to calm you down and keep the pace of play a little bit slower sometimes. But for Portugal, just wasn't it. Um, would I have him 10th? I think it is fair because he is a top, probably four, maybe three Paris Saint Germain player on that team. But with the way that he performed at the World Cup, it's impossible to have him any higher. Last year, he obviously finished much higher. And I think when you look at his club season, it wasn't much different. But again, with the World Cup, that's just what's going to happen. Uh, Ninth, Kylian Mbappe. Kylian Mbappe has to be higher than ninth. I don't know what 365 scores is doing. I'm not even going to go too in depth on this. World Cup Golden Boot winner. Yes, he didn't win anything for Real Madrid. Yes, France lost in the semifinals. But this is supposed to be an individual award. I understand that they value trophies a lot. Kylian Mbappe is probably the best player in the world. If you don't include Lionel Messi for this past month or two, he can't be ninth. That's a little bit ridiculous. 52 goals, 11 assists. I mean, those stats are just incredible. Uh, Erling Haaland in eighth. Yeah, I like that. City didn't do too much, but he did have, statistically, a pretty good season. Maybe not for his standards, but he did pretty well. And in the World Cup, there was a good portion of time before Norway got knocked out, in which he was the leading scorer, and he did really carry that team uh, to the quarterfinals to beat Brazil in the way that they did. That one game alone where he scored those two goals is really going to put him pretty high on this list. That was absolutely momentous for his country as a whole. Um, so yeah, I think eighth is pretty fair overall. Um, Michael Elise in seventh. He's got to be higher than that. He's just got to be. Uh, I mean, most assists this season. I think he was one away from tying the all-time record in a season. We just saw it. Yes, he didn't have the most phenomenal. Actually, played pretty poorly in the uh, semifinal game against Spain. But when you saw how everyone else in the world played against Spain, you can't blame him too much. When you compare him to everyone else, he really had an average, probably above average game for the average player to play against Spain in this World Cup. And in the games leading up to it, broke the record for World Cup all-time assists. He's got to be higher. He just looked at times like the best player in the world. Such a creative force. Love the way that he's always passed first player. Can't have him at seventh. He's got to be in that top five for sure. Sixth, Usman Dembele. Before the World Cup, he probably would have been top three. Now, I think sixth is probably pretty fair. Um, yes, he had a hat trick in the World Cup. He had a fourth goal as well, I believe. But we all know that this France team is Mbappe's. Ousmane Dembele had a good season. Also with the PSG thing where he didn't really play in Ligue 1 much, but he was really their pivotal player in the Champions League. Unfortunately, that's just going to get overshadowed by the World Cup this year. And so to have him sixth is going to be pretty fair. Um, Fifth, Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi is going to be the hardest person to rank in this entire list. Uh, now, he did actually play very well in this MLS season, um, finishing with, I'm pretty sure over a goal and assist a game, 44 goals, 30 assists. That is ridiculous numbers for a 39-year-old to pull off, for anyone to pull off. And then obviously 8 goals, 4 assists in the World Cup. That's incredible. There's just we don't have words for the caliber of player Lionel Messi is. We've already talked about it on this channel. He is the best player of all time. To be carrying a team like he did for Argentina at 39 years old, unbelievable. Uh, it would be disrespectful not to have him in your top 10 in this Ballon d'Or rankings, regardless of the fact that he's playing in the MLS this year. Fifth is probably pretty fair. If he had won the World Cup, it would have been interesting because I think a lot of people would have probably voted him first overall, given that Spain absolutely neutralized Argentina and Lionel Messi. I don't really think you can put him much higher than fifth, but just out of absolute respect for the player that he is, we will. I would leave that there. Fourth is Jude Bellingham, and now we get to the people where I would push down. Um, I think you got to switch him and Mbappe for me. Maybe put Mbappe even higher up on this list because was he amazing for England? Yes, he was. Um, but I think there were some other players who were also very good for them. Harry Kane, their defense was very solid. And when you look at, you know, did he play bad by any means in the Liga of the season? No, but he was not Real Madrid's star player. I think he's gonna be up for probably a much better season next year. I'm really interested to see how the title race is going to go, especially if Real Madrid is able to push and get Elise, which it's looking like they're not right now, but you never know. Um, it's just too high for me. None on the major trophies won. Yes, he was close to a couple of them, but his numbers aren't great. At the end of the day, he is a box crashing midfielder who's you're going to rely on him to score a lot of goals. 15 goals, 6 assists, with a good number of those coming in the World Cup. I think 7 he scored. Does it say there? 7 tournament goals in the World Cup. Um, yes, he had a very big World Cup. Yes, he was very impressive. Um, they did lose to Argentina. If they went to the final, maybe I'd say this would be more justified. And if they won it, I'd say certainly he should be in that top three. But with how it ended up, I think he's got to be on that lower end of the top 10. Third place, getting into the really nitty gritty of this, Rodri. Rodri is Spain's best player. Um, I almost, I would not be surprised at all to see Rodri win the Ballon d'Or this season. Um, we know how heavily they were the World Cup. He was Spain's best player throughout the tournament. Uh, they won the World Cup in a tournament in which their midfield just absolutely dominated everybody, in large part to him. Yes, Manchester City didn't win the Premier League, but he also missed, I'm pretty sure, like the first half of that season. And when he was in, he played very well. Um, I would not be surprised to see him place higher than this in the actual tournament. I'm curious to see who we've got in this top two, though. World Cup, 2 goals, 0 assists, I guess, is the stats that's saying the World Cup is really the only thing he has, but he just did so well in it. Um, Second place, Lamine Yamal. I think he's. I don't think he's going to be in second because yes, we know Lamine Yamal has the ability to be the best player in the world. We saw it, I think, last year. Um, God, I remember watching those Champions League games against Inter Milan in which he just looked absolutely unstoppable. How they lost those games, I can't even fathom. I wish they'd won, and then we wouldn't have to see Inter Milan get battered 5-0 by PSG. But what happened happened. Lamine Yamal this season, he played pretty well for Barcelona. Um, 24 goals and 20 assists and 54 appearances. This says those numbers are absolutely nothing to scoff at. For an 18-year-old at the time when she was playing, 19 now, uh, that is absolutely incredible. Now, we don't really put in age is not a factor for the Ballon d'Or. Um, and so I think, yes, he won La Liga. Did they do too much in the Champions League? Not really. Um, he the most pivotal player for Spain? Not really. None of the attackers really did too much to carry Spain to do all that much in general. And so to have Lamine Yamal in second place, I think is a little bit generous. I think he'd be skirting that 4 or 5 range for me personally. And number one, last place. Just a little prediction. Obviously, they will have Harry Kane. Yes, good. If they didn't have Harry Kane, I'd be very shocked. Harry Kane, uh, if there was no World Cup, should win the Ballon d'Or, in my opinion. He has broken the record for most goals in a season for a player not named Lionel Messi in the 20th century. Um, just absolutely historic. Competing against humans, he's done phenomenally. Not to glaze Messi, no one loves watching someone glaze, but what can you do when it's Messi? Um, Harry Kane is just so phenomenal this year. I think Bayern Munich were pretty unlucky to not make it to that final to play against PSG in the semifinal, and the performance that they had, the performances that he's had. Um, the finishing is just so lethal. Let's look down. 73 goals. 73 goals. That's a number that we are probably not going to see for a decade at least. Um, it is just incredible. Yes, he didn't play great for England, in the later rounds of the World Cup. I don't really think that's his fault with a player like Harry Kane. The way that you know it's up to the team to get him involved. He's not going to be creating a large multitude of chances for himself. You really have to get him in the position, and then he will finish because he is just the best finisher in the world. Um, so I think it's more really on the rest of the England team who just weren't able to get him in positions to score in those later rounds. It's I don't know, a little bit unfortunate. Um, Overall, I'd be pretty happy for him if he did win it. I think it would probably be between him and Rodri. Maybe there will be people saying Ousmane Dembele riding that PSG Champions League victory. Um, but for me, I like that he is first on this list. I think with the player he is, he really does deserve to have an accolade like the Ballon d'Or on his resume. Uh, and so you guys will have to let me know down in the comments if you agree with this list that 365 scores has given us, where you think changes should be. Players like Lionel Messi, do they deserve to be in the top 10 on this list after really not doing too much during the season of value? No, obviously he did well for the MLS, but you know what I mean. Um, and so yeah, let me know what you guys think below. If you enjoyed, like and consider subscribing, and we'll see you guys in the next one.